All right. Well, I am here with the lovely Kate M Colby, and she has recently published her first novel, The Cogsmith's Daughter. Now, I'm saying it right, Desert Terra, #1.
Yes, Desertera.
That's good because I keep saying it that way when I read the book, so I'm like, I hope that's how she's actually trying to say it.
Yeah, that's one of the challenging things with sci-fi and fantasy. Whenever you make up your own words, you have inconsistent pronunciation.
Unfortunately, yeah. But all in all, I think the book is really well and just a nice, smooth transition. There's nothing really outlandish out there about it as far as pronunciation wise, I would say goes. This whole week you've been having your kind of coming out party week. So you released the book on Thursday, and
Yes.
we're still waiting to hear on the paperback scenario, correct?
Yes. Oh, that has been like the bane of my existence as an author. Long story short, I wrote the novel in Scrivener, and then I had to put it over to Microsoft Word for my editing company. And somewhere in the magical track changes feature, the document kept adding in extra blank pages randomly, and I didn't realize it. So when I uploaded it, I thought it was an issue with my POD provider. But no, it's just Microsoft Word having fun. So luckily I have that all fixed. I've uploaded a beautiful, perfect version. And once it goes through the magic internet machine, it should be done. So hopefully by this Thursday, we'll have paperback.
Fingers crossed, right?
Yes.
And
Well, I have my copy, but you guys don't get yours just yet.
yours is invalid. We're waiting for ours. Come on.
Yes, I know.
Now, which paperback company did you go with? You can say that.
Yeah, I went with Ingram Spark. And most people go with CreateSpace, but the reason I went with Ingram Spark is they have a little more, in my opinion, easier to access global distribution market. And they have printers all over the world, whereas CreateSpace, I think they're just in the US. They might have them in the UK also, I'm not sure. But I have a lot of family in Australia. My husband's Australian, so it was really important to me to have that worldwide printing access so that they wouldn't have to pay $50 shipping just to get my book or something outrageous like that.
That really is. Once you start going across the border anywhere, it's like it's not even worth the cost of the book for a lot of people. So I think you definitely have a good notion there as far as where to go. But this week you've talked through other bloggers about how you came up with the idea for the book, which I thought was really neat. It was an Arabian Nights reference, I believe, right?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, I was working in my university's English department, and one of the professors had a project related to the Arabian Nights or the 1001 Nights, whichever title you prefer. And I liked the idea of this king who thought women could never be faithful and kept, killing wife after wife. And I just thought to myself, hey, what if adultery were actually illegal and that's how he was killing each of his wives? And it all snowballed from there.
I thought, I mean, it's a really interesting scenario, and unfortunately I'm only halfway through the book, but that's on me. That's not on you. I'm like a terrible reader. I read when I can, and it's usually like 5-10 minutes at night. So I
Yeah.
get little tiny chunks along the way. But it's brilliantly written, especially when people look at it as your first novel, and it reads more like you've written 4 or 5 of them at this point. So kudos to you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm really glad to know that piece of paper I got in college is paying off.
See, this is that moment where you're like, and this is worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the other parts to you doing this, now you kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, as far as your blog has been kind of a documentation of your progression, or are you actually just kind of going through and have helped people with different ideas of writing along the way?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. On one hand, when I started the blog, it was a way to prove to myself that I could write every day, even if it wasn't fiction. And it was a way to get a community around me and hold myself accountable to my writing. So I started off, I did a lot of just general writing advice articles. I started with pretty basic things, echoing concepts that I learned in my creative writing classes, that type of stuff. And then I really got into my journey last year during NaNoWriMo, which is when I actually wrote The Cocksmith's Daughter originally. And I did a little just blip every day during November describing my writing progress, and people really seemed to respond to that. So after that, I tried to keep that going because people seem to like it. And other than that, I've done other things to try to get involved in the community. I posted author interviews, book reviews, all that type of stuff. But I think going forward, I do want to keep writing for authors and giving back to the community, especially more in terms of the publishing and the business side as I move into that and get more experience with that. But I do also know that I need to write more for my readers, and I want to do that as well and stretch myself in that way. So I think that's something that I'm going to try to do with my website going forward.
It's going to be kind of like a Kate 2.0. We're going to move from pre-author Kate to post-author Kate.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it'll be good for everybody. It should be fun.
Now, as far as the writing style, or the publishing, I should say, part of the writing, you commented on it in one blog post or another, but you definitely know now that the writing is the fun part, and all the editing, publishing stuff is what sucks.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say it sucks, but it's more time consuming.
Yeah.
Definitely than the writing. I really like the writing, and granted, I wrote the novel in 30 days, and then I've been revising and editing ever since. So maybe I just don't remember how excruciating the writing was because it was such a short period. But yeah, no, the business side does take a lot of time, and it is difficult to work with editors and cover designers and do all the formatting and all of that. But I like the control of it, and I like seeing my creativity come to light in that way, not just in the artistic side. And I'm happy with my decision. I have a friend who's traditionally published, and she's always on her social media like, oh, I'm writing, oh, I'm editing, oh, look, the cover just came. And I'm like, well, that's great, but I'm glad that I got to be more hands-on in my book production process.
Now, I have my own opinion about it, but would you say that anybody who's first starting off writing, is it best to go through indie style writing first, where you write, edit, publish, do all that your own before you start traditionally publishing, or?
I think that entirely depends on the author, and that's kind of a cop-out answer, but I think it's true. Either way, I think if you really want to publish, you need to do research into both avenues because they both have pros and they both have cons. So with your indie side, you get more creative control, you get to be more hands-on, and a lot of the time that process can actually go faster. Whereas with traditional publishing, you lose some of that control and the publisher makes a lot of the big decisions. But then again, at the same time, with indie publishing, you have the financial burden all on yourself, and if something goes wrong, it is definitely your fault. Whereas with traditional publishing, they foot the bill up front, and if something's wrong with your book, you've got like a whole team around you to fix it. So I think it just depends on what your financial situation is and also what your desire for creative control is.
It's a very detailed cop-out answer. Thank you. You had mentioned in a blog post that it's a steampunk book, but it's steampunk without the steam. And I thought that was a really neat way to kind of give an angle to it, because it's basically a steampunk world, but like you're mentioning, take the steam out, all the steampunk stuff is still there, you just can't use it. But what made you think of that part? Or did you kind of mentioned it in something previous, but can you reiterate that?
Yeah, so basically what happened was with my initial inspiration, as we talked about earlier, it was with the Arabian Nights and the 1001 Nights. So I think that really influenced my initial idea because in my initial envisioning of the story, it was going to take place in a desert kingdom in like a totally different fantasy world that had absolutely no connection to the real world at all. And it was going to be very like gypsy kind of influenced. And you're going to see a lot of like the nomadic, that type of styling. But what was really interesting was when I was first telling my husband the idea behind the story and I revealed the desert kingdom, he kind of like scrunched up his face and he was like, the whole time you've been saying this, I was picturing it as steampunk. And I just kind of looked at him. I was like, well, crap, Daniel, that's so much better. But at the same time, I couldn't let go of the desert idea. Just thematically speaking, I liked the isolation of the desert, and I liked the idea of everything being like dry and harsh. And I just thought about it, and I was like, hey, I'll just put the steampunk world in the desert. I love the apocalypse. I'll just put them through an apocalypse. No more steam for you. And Desert Terror was born.
And a whole new genre too, steampunk apocalypse.
Yeah.
Well, now with that part of it, I mean, you have it's obviously a what do you want to call it, trilogy? Is it just multiple books? Do you have a cap as to like how many you want to put out for this series?
Yeah. My goal for this series is 6. And I have thought about doing a prequel to it, which would be a more traditional steampunk, and I can't say anything else without revealing huge spoilers. And then I've also thought about I might continue with like a spinoff at the end, just because there's a lot of things I could do in this world, and the ending events are going to be pretty exciting, I think, the way the series ends. But that'll all depend on how well it sells and if I'm completely sick of the world after 6 books or not.
And with 6 as a capping point for you, does that mean that you've actually plotted out 6 different major events that you want to write on, or are you just hoping for 6 and you know in a direction kind of how far out it's going to be?
I've done I don't want to say that I've thoroughly plotted or anything, but I know basically what happens in each book, and I've always known the end of the series, and I know what needs to happen to get us there in a logical, entertaining way. So.
Oh, as far as promoting wise, I think we've discussed that you might be going to Utopia, which is in Nashville, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still planning on doing that, or are you planning any events closer to that than June?
Yeah, I am still planning on going to Utopia Con. I don't want to fully 100% commit myself, just because I know I've got family and work obligations and things. And it's like 8 months in the future, so I have some time to solidify. But as far as closer chronologically events, I haven't really thought of much. I'm sure there are lots of conventions and things in this area, but I haven't really looked into it. And I had a lot of ideas for things that I would do in Kansas, which is where I'm from. And I live in Connecticut now, so I don't really know a lot of people, and I'm not in the book community here. So I really need to get more involved and reach out to some local independent bookstores and things. But right now, I'm just happy to stick to the internet and see how all of that goes.
When this book first came out, like when approaching that moment where it's going to post live at midnight on Thursday or Wednesday when it was. Can you describe to anybody how that felt? Was it nerve-wracking? Was it exciting? Was it Christmas time? I mean, what was it?
It was kind of funny because my husband and I went out to dinner with some of our friends, and I realized in the middle of dinner, oh no, my book publishes tomorrow and I need to put the price at $2.99 because the special pre-order price is supposed to end. So I got home and I went to do that, and I went on Amazon and I logged into my KDP, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't publish any changes because your pre-order is in the process of going live. Oh. So I know, no, you have foiled my plans. So on one hand, it was kind of like a last-minute frustrating scramble, but on the other hand, it was like, I can't take this back now. Like, Amazon's putting it out there, and it's too late. I can't stop it. So it was a little scary, mostly exciting, and I'm glad that I was asleep when the real launch happened, so I wasn't just thinking about it and obsessing over everything.
Yeah, I honestly, when that came through, for whatever reason, I was still awake, and I was just reading it, and like a little message popped up from Amazon and said, your book is now ready to download. I'm like, holy shit, yeah, okay, let's download it. Be the first one. I had to have been like at least second or third, because it was literally like 1 minute later. It was on my Kindle, so I'm like, look at that, I'm first, and now I'm declaring it. When it comes down to your second book, you said 6 months. Are you trying? Is that a firm goal you're trying for, or what's in the future for Kate?
It's a loose goal. Say, if all the cards aligned and everything went perfectly, I would release the second book in April, and then I would release the third book next October, and do basically like one every 6 months. I'm not sure how that'll work out, partly because I'm really busy with my new job, and partly just financially speaking. I need to recoup some of my investment and make some more marketing plans and that type of stuff. So my loose goal is April, but I'm not committing to that.
I'm going to leave that as a possible in the future.
Yes.
Come back to it in April and go, no, it's going to be like August.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the biggest things for indies, and like you said, one of the weaknesses that we have out there is that we kind of have to wait for that kickback before we can actually give back.
Mm-hmm.
And that sucks. It really sucks for me as a writer, because I know, like if I finished a book, I'd have to wait, and I hate waiting. I really hate waiting.
Yeah.
Like the paperback thing, I hate waiting for that. I hate knowing that, God, I'm gonna have to wait like a week, and then I'll get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really awesome getting to know you as an author and as a person offside of our little interviews and stuff. But it's kind of neat because I've seen you from start of it to finish of it, and now it'll be interesting to see what happens in the sequel to it. Now, can you say anything about the second one without giving any major spoilers away, or is that going to be like no, you would hate me?
Ooh, that's tough. I think what I can say without spoiling anything, and people who read the first one will kind of understand, you're going to see a very different side of Desertera. You're going to see a lot of political change and a lot of social, moral, ethical change, and there is going to be two very, very huge changes right on the first page of the book, basically. But I'm not going to reveal those just yet. I'm saving those for a little bit closer to launch to get some hype going, because I think people will be pretty excited when they find out what's going to happen.
I think so. I mean, I'm halfway through, and I'm still on the fence, going what's going to really happen. And thanks for not spoiling anything for me too. But I'll probably be hounding you like, what's going to happen? No, seriously, what's gonna happen? Well, other than that, I mean, thank you for spending your Saturday morning chatting with me and all of that.
Yeah, thank you for having me on again. I'm glad we were able to do another interview and hopefully answer some questions people had from my first one.
And it's really neat because the first time I interviewed you, you were an aspiring author, and now you are a published author, finally.
Finally.
Mm-hmm. Well, other than that, thank you so much. I'm going to put links to your book on Amazon, and as well, you have a giveaway through Goodreads right now too, right?
Yes. So basically, you can enter to win one of 3 signed copies of The Cosmos Daughter. And I don't remember the exact date, which I should, but I believe it ends this coming Friday. So you need to get in on it before the blog tour ends.
And that's always one of the exciting things, I think, with Goodreads, just that you can actually give something away and you see the hundreds of people that just start crawling out of the woodwork, like, free stuff, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Now, as long as the free stuff turns into a review, everybody keep that in mind. Reviews are like solid gold for authors. The more that they have, the better they feel.
Yes. So I have 3 so far, and they've all been positive. So I'm very happy, very much dreading the inevitable 1 and 2 star. But, you know,
And
right now it's all good.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you're going to get that 1-2 star at least for a few months. And it's always going to be that weird, random, like, I didn't like the cover. I'm going to give it 1 star. Dude, it's a cover. So look in the book. That's what you're supposed to do. But you don't really become that author until you get those really shitty reviews. And then once you do, you kind of get that little bit of a thick skin. And then you can continue on. You can feel accomplished, like you just survived a little battle.
Yeah. Well, it's a rite of passage that I am very much dreading, but I know I'll come out stronger on the other side.
Yeah, I know. Well, thank you again for joining me, and everybody who's reading this, everybody who's watching this or listening to it, please go out and buy Kate's book. It's fabulous. I'm only halfway through, but I can't imagine she tanks in the last half of it, quite honestly. So thank you again, Kate, for joining us, and congratulations and great success on your book and the rest of your blog tour.
All right. Thank you so much, Jonas.